Although often referred to as the godfather of science fiction cinema, it's amazing how few people I know have actually watched this classic, and it's been around for nearly 100 years. Some films have a cultural impact evident by their influence on cinema for generations after their release. This is most obvious in the science fiction genre, and you immediately think of 1950s classics such as The Day the Earth Stood Still and The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, without which there'd be no Godzilla. But this silent film from the 1920s had a visual which seemed beyond the boundaries of cinema at the time, and yet it managed to capture an epic sci-fi dystopia with a quality of special effects which films even 60 or 70 years later fail to reproduce. I've owned several versions of this film over the years, including most recently a nice metal case special edition. Viewers of previous restored versions will appreciate the footage restoration, which increases the runtime to 2.5 hours, and it means that we don't need many of the black storyboards which filled in the plot in previous releases. The previously lost footage isn't as clean, and the drop in quality stands out, but it doesn't spoil the viewing experience. In fact, I personally find it adds to the film because the story of how the film has had so many versions throughout the years is part of the film's history, and the edited-in found footage is a big part of that. The 16mm copy of the film found in Argentina was made from the 35mm master and is one of the best reminders I can think of to make sure that you back up your files. That's what the 16mm version was. It was a backup. Because film was so combustible, it existed just in case something happened to the master file. And something did happen to it. The international release of the film was cut up and shortened. The original wasn't a success, and so the full version of this film was probably first and last viewed back in 1927. There are so many different versions of this film. Some are longer than others, but it's not always because of the amount of footage. The internet is full of debate over whether this should be played at 16 or 20 frames per second, or if 24 or 25 FPS is acceptable. Fritz Lang likely shot the original at different frame rates, 16 and 20, and cinemas at the time often weren't standardized. They sometimes played films faster to get the next audience in. Plus, you can't rely on looking at what playback speed makes movement look the most natural, because this is a work of German Expressionism. Realism isn't the main concern. But it's not just about visuals. The sound is incredible too, which seems like an odd thing to say about a silent movie. The restoration has a full orchestral re-recording of Gottfried Huppert's original score. What a great way to honour such a remarkable film. The film opens to a grim scene of workers walking in depressing unison to begin their shift deep underground. Expressionless, fatigued, and with no display of individuality, the drones look more like prisoners than citizens, and perhaps they are. The slow music captures the sense of their despair, but the tempo quickly changes when we see the upper levels of the city. There, fit young men laugh as they play sports in the eternal gardens, while the ladies dance in their finest wares and volunteer to entertain Master Freda, the son of the city founder. Fountainside frolics are briefly interrupted when an undergrounder flings open the doors to show the less privileged children their more affluent brothers. It's a scene which manages to portray the unfairness of the two-tiered society and highlights the growing disquiet which exists among those less fortunate. The gate-crashing Maria makes an impression on the young Master Freda. Whether it's her spirit or understated beauty, he finds her occupying his thoughts, and he goes in search of her. Travels beneath paradise open his eyes to the horrors which face the proletariat every day. He soon witnesses an industrial accident, and the distraught Freda goes to tell his father, who is more concerned about internal reporting procedure than the tragic loss of life. Metropolis explores a society fractured by an asymmetric division of labour and power. There are rumblings of revolution in the air, but the many voices struggle to find a leader who can organise them into any sort of regime. Hope surprisingly seems to lie with the son of their ruler, and his epiphany after experiencing firsthand the brutality of the system he has long benefited from. The futuristic city is shown using impressive sets and models. The models don't look very slick now, but they are still far more impressive than comparable scenes from Logan's Run filmed 50 years later. The models use a system of pulleys to move vehicles around so that there's movement. Many creative techniques were used, such as filming through a clear piece of mirror so that a model or painting could be reflected onto the rest of the mirror, giving the impression that the subject was part of the reflected image. This enabled people to be shown moving amongst model landscapes or painted backgrounds. This technique was based on old theatre tricks, but Eugen Schüfftan perfected it here, and the Schüfftan effect would become a standard technique used by cinematographers. It's used to amazing effect in Metropolis. It creates a sense of vast scale and really adds to the epic feeling of the film. Another classic visual effects technique is put to good effect here: good old forced perspective. But you can't talk about visual effects without referencing the machine created by mad scientist Rotwang in the film. The robot isn't the clunky sort typical of old sci-fi, but is instead a slender figure accentuating the female form to erotic levels. It looks like a Cyberman's sexy mistress, and again, it's hard to imagine that it's the product of a film only just outside the first quarter of the 20th century. If you're new to silent film, then the overacting may take a little getting used to. Everything is overly dramatic, but that was the style of the time. It compensates for lack of speech and shows how cinema and centuries of theatre haven't yet diverged fully. The makeup and exaggerated expressions facilitate expressing what the characters are trying to communicate without speech. This is a story both grand in scope and execution, and although the style has dated, the plot is still just as gripping and serves as a chilling warning of what was to come. This German film was a favourite among senior Nazis who could no doubt relate with oppressive rulers, whereas progressive thinkers appreciate the themes of social injustice and the need to fight oppression. Films can often be influential purely because they came first, but that's not the case here. Metropolis has inspired futuristic fictional cityscapes, scenes of oppression, and of course, android aesthetics in popular culture. Not simply because it did it years ago, but because it was so perfectly executed in a vision which has clearly aged, but because of German expressionist imagery doesn't quite feel of its time either. This nearly 100-year-old sci-fi film is an extravaganza of visual effects that still look great. Equally as potent as the sci-fi imagery is the story of an imminent uprising from the bowels of a city created to keep a few people living in paradise. The darkest of attitudes is summed up perfectly when Freda confronts his father and asks where the workers of the city live. His father's reply is chillingly cold: where they belong.